Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and today we're going to talk about the Truthear SHIO. The SHIO is a USB-C DAC. It's a very simple DAC, and therefore the review will hopefully not be too long. I can go off on a tangent for a while. Before I get into, I guess, the rest of the review, I do want to thank Shenzhen Audio for sending this to me for review. They're a huge audio website. Check them out. I'll have a link in the description below, both to help you find the SHIO and just their general store, because they sell quite a lot of really good stuff. So big thanks to them. It won't affect what I say about the review. I'm not working directly with Truthear, nothing of that nature. But it's a straightforward DAC, so luckily there isn't too much to complain about as long as it's built well and doesn't sound like a train wreck, which it does not. With that being said, I want to show you how it's packaged. Now, I've obviously used this for a while. I actually received it almost 2 months ago. I've been testing a lot of stuff all at the same time, which could have been good or bad. Thank God I took notes. But anyway, all you do is slide this package out. You pop this little tab off and you get the art. Some people care or do not care for that, but it is included. And then, let's see, this little, the serial number. Manual? It is a manual. I never even looked at this before. I just always pull the papers off to the side. I do want to talk about the driver download link, though, because there's something cool to be had. Basically, if you have a Windows machine, you'll likely want to download that driver. That'll help give you all of the extra support that the SHIO has. SHIO. I'm going to probably alternate that name, by the way. I don't know why. I just change it every time I say it. But then you have the DAC. Now, let's talk about the DAC, because this thing is pretty slick. One, it's an aluminum chassis. It weighs only 17 grams. It's very lightweight, and it's wrapped. On their website, they say leather. I've seen some people say faux leather. They just say leather. It's hard to tell, to be honest. So I'm not sure how it'll wear over time. You can tell that it's glued on over the metal chassis. So if the glue holds up, then great. It's not like it's stitched or anything like that, but it feels robust. Now, the only thing you get in the box is this little braided USB-C cable, which is great because it relieves the stress off of the USB-C port of your computer. You don't want a DAC directly plugged in if you can avoid it, because that produces a lot of unnecessary stress on the port that it's not designed for. Now, here's what's cool. To me, this is more of a standout feature in this price range. There are competitors that have this, but not all of them. You have your standard 3.5 millimeter jack and a 4.4 balance jack, which supports 4 volts, because now as a balance connection, your output is differentially driven, which means that your ground is unique to each driver. They're not sharing a ground like you would with the standard single-ended output. So you, in a simple sense, don't assume that because you're switching to a balanced connection using some ridiculous thing like this, that you're going to have this unworldly level of audio fidelity improvement. It can help. It depends on the headphone. It depends if you need that power to get the extra output voltage. But don't go out of your way investing into all this balanced stuff thinking it's going to drastically transform it. I used the balanced connection on the Focal Stellia and the standard 3.5 millimeter. And aside from a volume change, I can't really hear the difference. There's no massive change in hiss or noise floor. It works totally fine. You just get more volume. So if you have a harder to drive headphone, or you just want that larger balanced cable, or you already have one, at least you have a DAC that can utilize it. Now, the SHIO uses the Cirrus Logic CS43198 DAC. There's 2 of them in here, which means it does DSD 256 because of that. And it does 32-bit 384 kilohertz resolution, all the way down to 16-bit 44.1. Huge array of resolution options. Now, that might sound familiar if you watch one of my recent reviews on the Creative Sound Blaster X5 Gaming Audiophile DAC, which was $280. Uses the exact same DAC as this. They both use 2, actually. That's why the specs are so similar. There's no MQA support, although now that MQA is going into administration, if you didn't know that, Tidal is likely seeing a shift soon to FLAC. Praise the Lord for that. So going into the DAC layout, the specs are pretty straightforward, by the way. What's really a standout to me is the power output. It does up to 150 watts times 2 at 32 ohms. And I believe it's 50 watts. Let me check my notes. 55 milliwatts at 300 ohms. So this can drive a large array of headphones. Even harder to drive planar magnetic headphones. Actually still sounded really good with this. It's pretty insane. You really get diminishing returns beyond this unless you go to like OTL or tube amplifier, some more insane setup that's not so much portable. But from the smaller portable side, this is going to do a really good job. So on the side of the SHIO, you actually have a little LED next to this volume rocker. I'll explain that rocker in a moment. The LED changes color. You have a yellow light if it's in high gain. You have a red light if it's in low gain. It's purple if you're in high gain in DSD mode, and it's blue in low gain DSD mode. That light actually goes through out of the single-ended output too. So if you have nothing plugged in right here, you'll see it kind of radiate. To change gain modes, all you have to do is press the volume up and down at the same time. And within like a second or so, you can see the light change. It's actually a small enough button where if you have a big enough finger, you can just do that and you can see it change very quickly. The default behavior, the way the SHIO ships out of the box, is it controls your host operating system volume. So if this is plugged into a Mac, it's going to change your Mac volume. If plugged into Windows, change Windows. Android, you get the idea. Now, they released a firmware update online that can change the volume behavior to work independently from your computer. I see why they did it by default, because they want it to just work and people to plug it in and not try to figure out why they can't hear anything. So that's a more straightforward way to do it. It's safer for the consumer. However, if you flash this and go to the independent, you have 60 steps of volume control, much more than any operating system typically gives you. Like Mac is like, what, I don't know, 15 steps or something. It goes up very quickly with a button press. So this gives you a lot more control, and it'll work independently. To me, that works really well if you're using this in any kind of exclusive mode that will bypass your operating system volume. Having that independent volume control is really nice. Plus, you will not accidentally, hopefully, blow out your ears, because when you plug in the DAC, sometimes like the Mac, for example, mine likes to default to almost max volume on a new DAC. So I always have to turn it down when I first set them up. So don't play anything when you first plug these in, just in case. On the note of power and volume and all of that, there's no idle function that I saw with this. Basically, it's always drawing a steady state of power. So if you are not using this and you're plugged into a mobile phone, make sure that you unplug it, because it's going to have this phantom power draw whether you're using it actively to play music or not. It does not come with a lightning adapter. They do sell that separately, but for the $70, you're only getting this single USB-C plug, which has that nylon braid, like I said, but there's no adapter in the box either to go from USB-C to A. So just plan for that in case this isn't the exact port configuration you're looking for. So let's talk about sound quality. It's clean, okay? And I'm going to compare it. I think it'll help when I start talking about how it stacks up against other dongles. So maybe I'll just include the comparison part in here. It's very clean. It's very neutral. A slight touch of warmth. And in a simple sense, there's no graininess to the sound. Some less expensive DACs can have like a knife edge when it comes to resolution. When you're playing a certain song, it can almost overly sharpen or digitize a track. Like it excites the note too much, which to me obviously doesn't sound as good because it can be a little fatiguing. Some people may like that. It's really just a preference thing. However, to be clear, my preference is not overly sharp or fatiguing, and I don't like boosted treble. This is extremely flat. This isn't going to do anything to your EQ. There's no software. There's no crazy bells and whistles. Hell, there's no flashable filter. You just plug this in and play and listen to music. The bass response is excellent. It drove the larger planar headphones and stuff like the Stellia, which is a pretty awesome dynamic closeback. It drove them no problem, even in the bass region. I still got that punchy dynamic bass I was looking for. Then if you go to something that's super easy to drive, like Truthear's new IEM, I'm going to review this soon. This is the Hola sub $20 IEM. This DAC is a little overkill for that, but if you're planning on upgrading and scaling down the road, you can leave this in low gain. It'll drive them no problem. This is a warmer, slightly darker tilted IEM. So that combination with a very smooth, non-grainy, not overly forward DAC, it's not going to have the most energetic sound presentation in the mid-range and treble. However, from a tonality standpoint, this does stay true to the song. I listen to many different genres, many different tracks on different headphones and different IEMs that I'll be releasing reviews on soon. And I felt like everything stayed true to how I expected it to sound, with a surprising amount of power handling in the bass region. That high gain mode is no joke. So let's talk about competitors. There's also the other two things I wanted to say. No noise, no hiss. It's extremely clean sound, and the imaging is impeccable. So if there's a track that's dead center, this produces a perfect dead center. There's no gain or channel imbalance issues to worry about, and imaging excels depending on what you're listening to, of course, as well. So no issues there. Now, there are a couple competitors that I have. I can make direct comparisons. I don't have an AudioQuest Dragonfly to compare to. I think some people online may have posted some comparison posts online, like on the forums and stuff. But I have the Helm Audio Bolt and the new iFi Go, I think it's called. Let's see. Let's check the box. This is the Go Link. I will be reviewing that at another date. But this is, I guess, a teaser video. So, how these stack up. The Helm Audio Bolt is a darker sounding DAC than the other two. It's actually even more smooth, has really solid bass performance, doesn't quite get as loud as these two, but it still gets loud enough that if you have an IEM, it's more than enough power. A cheap $10 Apple dongle is enough power for a lot of IEMs. So what I like about the Helm Audio Bolt is it has TRRS input. I run a gaming content channel as well, and having that functionality is great because if you have something like a drop PC38X or something with a microphone, you can plug that into this and get your microphone and your sound from a fairly clean, capable, powerful DAC. Now, where it struggles is when you get into the larger headphones, like the Stellia or the planar magnetic stuff that I have. I'm just keeping it simple so I don't load my table up with headphones. The lack of power handling on the Bolt becomes a little bit more apparent. It starts to struggle in the bass region. You lose a little bit of the texture of the bass and the control of the bass. It starts getting a little bit sloppier when you're really pushing the Bolt to the limit. If you're an Android user or a gamer on Windows or Mac, or you just use IEMs and you like that bass, the Bolt is still an excellent DAC. And these are comparable in price. You get into the iFi Go Link. A little bit more powerful than the Bolt. I felt like I got more peak volume out of it. It has, it's not as powerful as the SHIO. It's a very light, almost too light cable, but it's very flexible, different design, not detachable, has a sticker on it. This is better suited if you're just driving an IEM on an iPhone, for example, because it comes with the Lightning adapter. So your total investment cost is lower with the Go Link because it's $10 cheaper and comes with the adapter right off the bat. Now, it sounds similar to all three. All three have a very similar sonic performance. They're not overly grainy or bright and fatiguing. They're very dark and clean sounding, very sterile. And at low to medium volumes, they do an excellent job in the bass region. These start to excel at higher volumes on harder to drive headphones while still maintaining control of the bass. It's a fun DAC. I actually really like this one. I'm looking forward to reviewing that too. But just to keep it simple, for $10 more, obviously the detachable cable is nice. The no iPhone support out of the box is kind of a bummer. But now you're getting a balanced output if you need it, and you get physical volume control, which is a nice benefit, and a ridiculous amount of power. And it's not noticed as much or necessary for IEMs. What it's noticeable on is if you wanted a nice compact DAC, but you wanted to drive harder to drive headphones, something that's less sensitive with higher impedance, you name it. There's a lot of different headphones out there that have different characteristics. And when you get into EQ, when you get into very dynamic songs that have very quiet parts, or a song that was recorded at a lower volume or mastered at a lower volume, the overhead that the SHIO gets you is a huge, huge benefit. I felt like this could drive all of my stuff at a louder volume. I never got close to max volume regardless of the song I was listening to or the content I was watching. Whereas the other two, I was getting closer to the limits on harder to drive stuff. So that wraps up the review. This is kind of short. I didn't do all my crazy exotic B-roll close-ups. Honestly, I'm way behind on content. So I'm really sorry that I'm not doing as much of the panning and dynamic shots as I used to. I'll get back into that soon, but I'd rather just catch up on content and provide some honest information based off what I've experienced. So I have a lot more stuff coming out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd like to see it the next video. Huge recommend to end it on that. I never even said my final thoughts, but I think the SHIO is absolute knockout at this price. It is punching well above its weight. I do love having a physical button for the volume, even though it's digital gain. Just that one extra step is kind of nice. And it feels good in the hand. This leather's kind of padded. So I hope it holds up well. Time will tell. I've used it for a couple months off and on. It's gone in my pocket. Use it in the bedroom when I'm working at night. And it's been a solid DAC. So really happy with it. Hope you found the review helpful. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.